All right, welcome to the first episode. It's fine, I'll fix it. So we are working on a room in our new house, which if I can. So what we're doing, this was a enclosed porch originally. There's my little handy helper over there. And my father-in-law helped me go through and he did a lot of the drywalling around here. But what we're doing today is there was a light socket up in the ceiling here, and this is on a three-way switch. So there's a switch that's over there that's in the master bedroom, and then on the other side of that wall there's a switch that's out there, which we're actually going to convert that into a four-way, so that then there's going to be those two switches plus that one right there. That'll be another video, but today what we're doing is we're putting these. So if you can, I'll try to shine a light up in here. But so you can see there's the red wires that are in there connected, the black wires. So these were two white wires that were coming out of here, and the way that it was originally wired, I marked this as because it was hooked up to the black wire on the light fixture. So I'm just going to hook it back up the same way that it was hooked up originally. I'm sure somebody else could probably explain a little bit better to the wiring of why that's done that way, but that's how I'm gonna go back ahead and do it. I kind of wish that I would have started this series, because part of this is going to be to help me document the stuff that's being done. But anyways, so I'm going to do that for right now. We're just going to put a temporary fixture in there. I've just got spent $1.99 on one of these guys here, which, let me see if I can find it. I just went to Menards and got one of these. These are for garage fixtures, $2. So that way that while we're working in here, we've got light, but if I paint over it or whatever, or put primer on it, it's not going to be the end of the world for it. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started with this. So we're going to unbox this, take a peek at what's inside of here, see if that's going to actually follow me. Try it now. There we go. All right, you're with me now. Okay, so yeah, so these are just like a little porcelain deal that you often see these in garages. I'm just using it as a temporary fixture in here. All right, there's our two nuts. And that's it for what's in there. Okay. Okay, so these, they've just got the screws that's right on the bottoms of them. So that's how the wires mount straight onto those. So the black goes to the brass. So the hot wire goes to the brass, and then the neutral wire goes over to the silver screw. And then the whole thing just mounts up there, and that's it. So obviously the first step is you always want to make sure that the power is shut off on these. I also like to have these little magnetic, hey, I'm back over here. There you are. I also like to use these little magnetic pieces. These little magnetic trays are super handy for putting the mounting bolts and stuff into. Yeah, I put together a little electrical kit, and this is just a Harbor Freight job, and so it's something just simple, so then you've got everything. These are handy little tools. I saw this from an electrician that I worked with for a little while, but what it does is it tests for voltage. So like this over here is dead. That's hot, which is concerning. So I'm gonna, before I really hook this up, even though it's how it was hooked up, I'm gonna need to do a little bit of research on how a three-way light switch works, because to me, if that's hot, but this one's not, let me go switch the light switch on. So I changed the light switch. So we're unchanged on that. I'm going to need to do some research on how this is supposed to be done, because something tells me that the guy who previously wired this, there was a lot of hints as we went through this place that the previous owner of this property did a lot of wiring himself. So I'm guessing that may or may not be up to code. So I might need to sit down and do a little bit of wiring on how this is supposed to be done, just to make sure that I can attest that that's done correctly. Well, stay tuned, we'll be back. So it looks like this is actually done right-ish. I mean, so what they did was they wired the red travelers together, and they wired the hot wires together, and then they left the two neutrals. So the question is, how did they wire the switches? I've got to believe that that's got to be the end switch, and that one should be the source, because the breaker box is that way. And so we're gonna need to rip into the switches and see if those have been wired correctly now. Well, the adventure continues. So I pulled this switch off, which while we're in here, I might just replace this switch. These switches are pretty old, as you can tell. They're, you know, nothing straight edge too much anymore. They plug in from the back. Those are exposed. So, I mean, there's a few things I could get fixed on these, which I might just do while I'm here. Hang on just a second, honey. But we've got, you can see a red wire that comes in from the bottom, goes out on the top, and then also a hot wire coming in. So we're gonna have to take a look at what I think is the source switch. Okay, so this is again another old switch. So the bottom one is what we're looking at. So there's a white wire, a red wire, and a black wire. So that red wire must be the traveler, and that white wire must be a traveler. Okay, here's why we have to have a multimeter instead of just those easy little testers. So right now I've got this hooked up. So I've got it hooked up to this wire, which we thought was going to be the white wire. Because again, before they had it hooked up where that was the black wire, this one's the white wire, which I guess thinking about this, you're just completing a circuit. But at any rate, so I've got one alligator clip up there in the ground, and then I got one clipped up to this one. So with this, I'm going to come over here into the bedroom. Now here was part of the problem, is that I was thinking that this was the switch that it came to, this first one, be right next to the door. It makes a ton of sense, right? So you trip that, watch the multimeter, nothing. However, you go over to the second switch over here, trip that, watch the multimeter. Bingo. We have 124 volt that shows up there. Shut it off, boom, voltage goes away. So that tells me part of what we need to know there. I did the same thing. I did confirm that that's the source switch. That needs to get redone, like I showed. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap these alligator clips around over here. Let me just see if I can set this camera up. So I'm actually going to strip that down just a little bit more. Just so we've got a little bit of exposed wire going on here. We have 12 gauge is the bottom one. Okay. So now we've got some exposed wire to catch that alligator clip. So then we know we've got a good connection there. The other one I had cut back a pretty good chunk already. All right. Now let's take this around. Okay, let's take a look at our... So we've got no voltage there. So again, this is the wire that we thought was supposed to be the black. I turned the switch on, nothing. Shut the switch off, nothing. So I think that confirms that as of up here, it's actually the other one that is supposed to be the hot wire, and this one here is in fact supposed to be the neutral wire. So it's a good thing to check these. It's a good thing. These are pretty good little multimeters. I actually inherited this one from my dad. He had this one. This is a Kaiweets, that's the model. Sorry if I didn't say that wrong, but I looked them up. Everybody on Reddit says they're a pretty good little multimeter. I bought a new set of leads for it, so it works pretty good. And yeah, so the alligator clips make it easy for doing hands-free stuff like this. So I went ahead and pulled this other one off just so that we could get a documentation on how this is set up. So I did confirm that's that's a black, red, and a black. So I actually think this one's wired right for being the three-way. So that does confirm what our question was, that the other side I believe is definitely the power. So anyways, I'm going to compare these videos here. I just wanted to add one note too. Typically, I don't deal too much in electrical. I'm not an electrician, and so I typically will just take stuff apart and then reinstall it the exact way that it was taken apart. But in this situation, I'm finding and learning that the previous owner of this house, I think, did quite a bit of stuff themselves, or they hired some other kind of electrician that did some of it. I don't know, but if you're an electrician watching this, give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. All right, so now that we know what's hot, what's not, and we know for a fact that we've got it shut off, and we know that these were actually marked backwards originally, so now we're going to go ahead and get this thing connected up the way that it was supposed to have been. So in doing that, I'm going to set my tool pouch up here with you. Let's step back up here. All right. So, whoops, those are the wrong ones. I found these, I don't know where I got them from, but they're little wire strippers, and they're actually handy as all get out when they work. And now they're not working. There we go. See, they just strip off like that. They're just handy as can be. So those are pretty nice. Throw it on the floor. That's what electricians do, right? That's why everybody in the trades is angry at them. Sweep it up later. Give myself just a little bit more there. All right, enough of those. Apparently they don't work very good. Sometimes they work amazing and sometimes they don't, but it just beats the heck out of, you know, getting in here and then doing that number. Okay. So this guy here is the hot side that we learned. So we're going to undo the screw. Let's see if it's got to stop. I don't think it does. So I'm going to pull these. Let's put little hooks in these. And you know, if you guys do stuff differently, I am all ears to know how you do things. This is just how I've done it. It seems to have worked for me so far. So it's by no means the only method of doing it. My little secret that I learned one time is that if you put your hook to where when you're twisting, when you're tightening the screw, it's actually pulling on the wire. That helps a ton. Because otherwise, when you get down to the bottom of it, instead of the wire tightening, it actually winds up like pulling the wire. Or it's not pulling the wire, it ends up shoving it out of there. And so then you don't have near as much contact. And I know you guys can't see this, what I'm doing over here. So sorry about that. Maybe if we get big and famous on YouTube, we can get some Meta glasses or something. Those would be super handy. I wonder if they make Z87 approved Meta glasses. I'm sure they already are. Never know. Okay, so we got those two wires up in there. We're gonna use our new little wire pusher. Okay, holy smokes, that worked like a charm. Got this thing for Christmas for pushing wires, because when you go through and you put, that's always the biggest pain, right? Is when you go ahead and you're putting these on. Oh, Now we got another problem that we're ensuing, is that this thing is now too high up in there. So I need a longer bolt. So that's probably made for regular just drywall width, which makes sense because we've actually did drywall plus, this is drywall plus plyboard on the ceiling. Not exactly my design, but a design nonetheless. So I wonder if we could just let it hang like that. Okay, let's grab a light bulb. Grab a light bulb, put it in here, and let's try it out. It's either gonna work or it's really not. Bingo. There's light switch number 1. Let's try light switch number 2. All right. So it's not great. It's temporary lighting because, like I said, I'm just going to use this for doing painting and stuff in here. So that's what we're going to do with it for right now. It's hanging crooked at an angle, but we're just going to let it hang like that. I'll probably get a longer screw and put in there, so I'll just show you really quick while this is off what I was meaning. If you can see up in there. So there's actually plyboard that was the ceiling prior, and we just went ahead and put the drywall right on top of the plyboard. There you can see it a little bit better. So because of that, that's recessed a little bit further. This isn't one of those adjustable ones. So for now, again, this is just a temporary light fixture, but now I know that we'll need some longer screws anyhow. So I'm just gonna use it like that.